Hello and welcome back to the Moon Boy Podcast. Today is episode 7 and I'm here with my best friend Donovan Jolly at DIY Investing. Today we're going to be talking about Bitcoin, altcoins, Ethereum, Tezos, and the crash of the old financial systems, as well as going over the delusions that we're seeing in a lot of the wealthy people when it comes to understanding cryptocurrency as the new financial system. It's going to be a really awesome podcast. Make sure that you guys watch clear to the end. And we are also shooting for a goal of reaching 500 likes on this podcast.
Smash it up.
So make sure that you guys smash it up on my channel and on his channel so that we can reach that goal of 500 likes. Also, you guys subscribe to both of our channels because we are uploading 5 days a week, and we also do the podcast every Friday, which comes out usually Saturday or Sunday. So it's going to be really valuable for you guys to be following both of us on YouTube as well. So without further ado, I say we get straight into the podcast here.
Yep, lots of really cool things to have happen in crypto. I mean, this recent correction scared a lot of people out because obviously there's all this uncertainty inside of the global markets. I mean, I think it's funny because just hearing like my grandpa talk about it, it was when it was first starting to correct and the market was selling off, and he came to me and he's like, "What do those charts say? This thing's really selling off. What do you think's going to happen? They say it's the biggest loss in history or whatever." And then I was like, well, I don't know. Let me go look at the chart. And I'd pull up the chart, and it's just a little tiny pullback on the grand scheme, and everybody's freaking out. But at the end of the day, it's just another one of those events where you have a correction that was overdue, and then you're starting to have all this media attention just attaching to whatever random bias it is, just to kind of go with what price is. And so a lot of fear recently, but it's actually created so many good buying opportunities throughout these cryptos. I've been buying a significant portion, adding to my long terms, and so it's been a really exciting time.
And probably a buy opportunity in a lot of the stock market as well.
For sure.
Different stocks. Yeah, I definitely think that it's just extremely common for people to get so caught up on these short-term price action, and in the moment, in that day feels so crazy. It's like, oh, prices have dropped 20% this day. And it's so easy to lose the sight of what's going on in the big picture just because of short-term price action.
Right.
And every single time that it crashes, they always say it's the biggest crash ever. This is the biggest crash ever we've seen. And really, the stock market corrects about every 10 years, and we haven't had one, well, 8 to 10 years, and we haven't had one for 10 years. So to see a little bit of a correction in the stock market, if anything, is healthy right now.
For sure.
So the whole talk about viruses taking over the earth and killing everybody, like, yes, it's having an effect on people, but it's definitely something I perceive through the lens of FUD.
For 100%. I mean, well, if you just look at the data and the analytics that show, I mean, if you falling off of what's on the news or anything, you're going to be very scared because they're just going to be talking about anything. If you follow the news, everything's the end of the world. It doesn't matter what they're talking about. And so if you look at the real advanced analytics regarding coronavirus, you're starting to see that really it's not that deadly. I mean, for our age group specifically, and I think that it's really only targeting like 70, 80-year-olds that have like a 2% mortality rate. But really what they're finding is just the fact that this coronavirus isn't deadly for younger people. It's pretty common. It's like the flu. It's a little bit deadlier than the flu, but not much, a couple percentage points. On top of that, I mean, the only people that are dying are people that are already terminally ill, people that are old, and, it's just one of those things where even the common flu kills more people.
Right.
The only real dangerous thing about coronavirus that I foresee is the fact that there is 2 strains. What they're finding is that coronavirus itself actually functions similar to HIV, and so it is a little bit of, it's taken this kind of turn where it's morphed into something of a little bit stronger strain. It attacks your lungs, and it can actually leave you with permanent lung damage. But I still don't think
a certain strain of it, right?
Yeah. Right now, there's only like 2 strains that we know of. There's a lot of unknowing and uncertainty regarding, and that's why I think that there's so much fear. But realistically, the amount of people that are infected has started to kind of cap out, and it looks like we're kind of coming to an equilibrium point where eventually we'll kind of level out, and then it'll just kind of be the thing. But I just look at it as more of just one of those things where the markets are correcting, the virus comes out. It's just an easy thing to attach to it, because we had Ebola.
Easy narrative.
Exactly. We had Ebola, we had SARS, we had all of these other diseases that just pop up, or viruses that pop up every couple years or so, and it's just a cycle that repeats, and that's why I think that it's a little bit overblown right now.
Yeah, no, completely agree. And also, it's a huge moneymaker. I mean, coronavirus, all these when you talk about coronavirus and stuff on YouTube and stuff like that, we might get demonetized. I don't know. Hopefully we don't. But it's one of those things that the public media sources, all of these major news companies, they're making tons of money on it and they don't get demonetized. So it gives them like an opportunity to profit off of all of this fear and mania and craziness through conversation and trying to make it look crazier than it actually is. And they milk it and they continue to milk it. And it just reminds me, I saw a tweet the other day, so shout out, it's not me that thought of this, so shout out to the person that did, but they were like, listen, heart disease is the number one killer in America. Everybody's freaking about coronavirus, yet KFC is putting a chicken sandwich between 2 donuts.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So like perspective is so important, and it's so easy to lose because of human emotion and because of FUD, fear, uncertainty, and doubt, and spreading of that fear, and it's profitable to spread that fear.
It's really, this is really the first situation that we have, and this is something I've been actually talking about in some of my previous videos from a few months back, is the fact that I thought, and what I was kind of expecting was that we were going to have some sort of a correction, and when we did have that correction, I foresaw that we would have some sort of media attachment. They would throw something at it, which right now it appears to be coronavirus. I think that was just kind of what I was expecting to have happen. Now, new people watching this that haven't experienced this, they weren't around for the China FUD back in the last cycle. They didn't experience any of that stuff. And so they don't really know what to expect when something like this happens, because obviously it can be very scary. You're hearing all of this stuff on the news. On top of that, there were a lot of things with the coronavirus that I felt were kind of swept under the rug. And so there was a little bit of a conspiratorial effect there. But I think that overall, it's much more of just a little correction, because I mean
it was on Lysol cans, wasn't it?
Yeah, I mean,
so there may be a conspiratorial aspect to
yeah,
the things
and we have no idea. All that we know is really what's been given to us, and from what analytics shows, it's not as deadly as people are making it up to be. I think that realistically, what we need to focus on is the fact that we broke out of a 7-month consolidation inside of Bitcoin. All of that descending resistance was breached over this recent impulse that we just saw.
Yeah.
And everybody was really bullish, and now you're seeing 20% pullback, and all of a sudden the world's ending.
Yeah.
And this is what's going to continue to happen. And so if you're sitting here watching this, like, now's the time where you want to be accumulating. I know for me personally, I was looking forward to seeing a correction just so I could actually kind of add to some of those long terms. And so I'm using this as a really good opportunity, and I know that you're doing the same as well. It's not super scary when you have a clear head and focus about what's going on.
Yeah, so if you guys are new and you've never experienced the aspect of how people narrate markets, you'll soon find that in analysis, usually what makes price move is the fact that a whale bought when it was 30% down. He just made 70% profit, so he takes 80% off the table, and then the market doesn't have any liquidity to keep going up. It doesn't have any, not liquidity, it doesn't have any buy walls, any support. There's no strength in the market for it to keep going up. So, but what happens is then the market drops 30%, and then everybody comes out and says that it was because of China FUD, said it was because of coronavirus, and they come with this narrative. And you'll find that narrative is more or less
past tense, I would say.
It's past tense, and so it's not like even useful for like being able to predict what's going to happen in the future. It's just purely emotion that occurs. And so emotion moves the prices. And then people pick narratives to attach to the emotion that they're feeling, because they're trying to justify whatever they're feeling.
Right, exactly.
And that's what it really boils down to. So as you start to get deeper in this space, as you've been around for a little longer, and a lot of you OGs that have followed us for a long time know exactly what we're talking about. But if you're new, I just wanted to clarify that for you guys, so that you can kind of integrate into your understanding.
There's going to be a load of these experiences throughout this next bull run. I mean, who knows what's going to happen? More institutional development gets added to Bitcoin. That could easily short-term correct the price further down in this bull market. We could see corrections shortly after the halving. We could see, there's a number of these different scenarios that play out in the market. And when we do see the actual correction and we see we'll see the narrative pop up shortly after, and that's just going to be the way that the cycle works. It's going to continue in a bear market. I mean, from what I remember seeing at that first bear market when we started to actually sell off and we went to that 6K support, was just seeing how the narrative completely switched from being one of more positive news to where now you're only ever seeing negative news. And it's just because price is going down that you're seeing that. It's very rare that you're going to have price going down and then you're not going to have some sort of narrative trying to attach to why it's going down. Because everybody thinks that there's some reason why it had to have gone down right then, when it could have easily been, like you just said, some whale just taking some profits and then it just caused the market to react. It's
or
so
like
many
what I
different scenarios.
said at your grandparents' house. I was mentioning how the fact that after 5 waves, you always get a correction. You know, and everybody's saying coronavirus, this, that, the other thing, blah, blah, blah. And at the end of the day, we did 5 waves and we need an ABC. It's the technical analysis is always ahead of the narrative. It's always in front of the narrative.
Exactly. That's why I try and focus so much on technical analysis, because there's just so many uncertainties that coexist with the markets, with the global economies in general, and if you don't have a clear head and you don't have a plan in place beforehand, you're just going to get chopped up more or less. I mean, fundamentals are very important if you're a long-term investor and trying to find which coins are going to give you the most consistent profitable ROIs. But technical analysis is really where we're going to be using it and implementing it to know what's going to happen on a shorter term perspective. And like you said, we foresaw this correction coming. We knew that there was going to be a correction. We basically went straight from this to the 618 at that bounce. We stopped out a little earlier, but it was what's to be expected nonetheless. And so I know that for me, watching this correction has been the least scary thing in the world. It's really weird to say that because I don't think I've seen so much fear in the markets like this for quite some time. In the stock market, it's been a significant majority of time before we've seen anything like this.
About a year, and even longer than that in some cases.
Yeah, and not only that, but you're coming up with election year, you've got the coronavirus. I think that this is just a lot of uncertainty in the world in general, seeing a little bit of a correction from that uncertainty. And I think it was kind of to expected heading into this presidential campaign and election, because generally speaking, it's an uncertain time as far as markets go, trying to figure out who's going to be the next president, because so much rides on the economy between a Republican or a Democrat. If Bernie Sanders gets elected, you know that it's going to be completely different policies than, if Trump gets reelected once again. And so the market's going to have to adjust to that. And so with us being on this big stock market tear consistently, especially since Trump's been in office, now that we're coming up to this correction right before we have this new election year, I think that this was kind of to be what was expected. And so if you're feeling a lot of fear right now, just understand that this is all just part of the plan. It's just all part of the game. This is actually a really good learning opportunity if maybe you got liquidated, you got stopped out, you were over leveraged or something. This is always going to be the times where you're going to learn the most, is when everything's the most uncertain.
And also a great opportunity, in my opinion, to be buying crypto, to be accumulating more, getting more crypto under the table. And I agree with you. It was not scary at all. In fact, I actually, on my YouTube channel, before all this FUD came out, told people that Bitcoin was going to make an ABC correction. And I mapped out the A, the wave, the B wave, and the C wave. And then the market fell to the A wave, made the B wave, and the C wave. And then at the bottom of the C wave is when I start hearing about coronavirus, which is the reason that the markets dropped. When I already knew what was happening, I had already mapped it out. I was ahead of the market. And so to see the correction was the narrative is almost meaningless to me in 100%. Comparison, because I already had seen where I need to get back into the market and seen where the market is going to drop from where it was at.
Right.
And so
that's the thing about technical analysis, and that's why we are always petitioning for everybody to get towards learning that if they want to actually learn about cryptocurrency investing and trading and whatnot. Just because of that simple fact. I mean, if you have a plan in place and you become proficient in trading and analyzing the markets, whether you're wrong or right, it doesn't matter. But if you stick to a plan, it's similar to one of the last podcasts that we just talked about with why you should have a trading plan. And that podcast was basically made specifically for this correction, it seems like, because we told everybody in that podcast that this is why you have a plan in place. Is so when the narrative comes out, you already knew it was going to happen, and now you're buying that narrative when everybody else is selling. And that's the difference that separates the people that aren't going to profit. Well, I always use this quote I don't remember whose quote it is, but out of the 90% of people who invest and trade in a financial market, only 10% of those will average a profitable return.
Yep.
And this is the reason why, is because the smart and the wealthy, they plan ahead, they have a plan in place. So when the narrative comes, when the correction happens, the fear is in the air, the blood's in the streets, everybody, well, the wealthy are buying. And
Yep.
that's what we're seeing right now. Fear in the streets, or blood in the streets, fear everywhere, and guess what, everybody's selling. And really, this is the great opportunity that you've been looking for the last month or so.
Yeah, I agree 100%. And it actually gives you more confidence. It's like all of a sudden you're like, oh, instead of you seeing the narrative and being like feeling a little bit of the fear that everybody else is,
Right.
you see the narrative and you see the fear that they're feeling, and then you have more confidence in your trade.
Yep.
You're like, oh, I'm definitely doing the right
Yeah.
thing now. So that's pretty awesome. And, you know, kind of to go along with that is, and this has to go with kind of the crash of the old system, is people are going to get used to the way that they're doing things. And I like to look at the system as the financial systems that we have currently, as a really beaten path. It's been used for a lot of years now, and so people think that it has to act in the same exact way that it's always acted. And so they have this it's a really beaten path, and it's a very engraved kind of structure. And because of that, when a new structure comes out like cryptocurrency that threatens to take it over, they don't even see it as being a threat, because they're so integrated into their old system that the amount of work that it would take to switch to the new is too much. And that also goes along with trading plans, because one trading plan that a lot of people don't talk about is the trading plan of being able to let go of terrible old systems and adapt to new ones.
Right.
And that's not the easiest trading plan. Sometimes that one takes a lot of thought, reconstruction of the way that you view the world. And I think that's what's going to get so many people that are wealthy in this old system, and actually the wealth will be transferred to the people that are in the new system, which is Bitcoin and blockchain.
Right. I agree. We're going to see a major wealth transfer taking place from the older generations. All of those that have been holding stocks for years and years and years, they're going to be, retiring, taking profits, dying as well, and just that wealth is going to transfer anyways, and that's just the cycle that works. And so, I mean, to see kind of what's taking place with blockchain technology, I mean, for us being in this space, we see the value, we've known the value for a long time, but then you start seeing the narrative of like Warren Buffett, you talk about, you just brought up, what was his name?
Mark Cuban.
Mark Cuban, exactly. You've got these other people, Kevin O'Leary will talk about it. You have these big names that will talk about Bitcoin, and most of them write off Bitcoin. They look at it as just kind of funny money, doesn't exist, doesn't mean anything, has
Baseball
no tangible
cards.
wealth. Yeah, and then they do see upside in blockchain, but even then, when I do hear them talk about blockchain, it's not nearly to the extent that we see it. They don't foresee this big, this futurized economy and this revolution that's going to take place. And I think partially that is because most of them have hidden agendas. They have a lot of investments. They have a lot of wealth that's tied into the current monetary system.
Yep.
I mean, Warren Buffett, Berkshire Hathaway, most of his investments are in banks. And so he has incentives for telling everybody that Bitcoin is a scam or it's going to fail nonetheless. And so we're going to start seeing that wealth transfer takes place. And it happens every single new generation. As the old ones become old, they start to lose their money, whether it's from selling it, whether it's from dying and passing it down to their family. It's going to happen regardless. And we're just starting to see the early signs of that. And so right now, I think we're in the disbelief phase, and this is like the ultimate disbelief phase in the cycle where billionaires, big-time investors are still riding off crypto, but I do believe that this next bubble is really going to be the one that sets it into the mainstream. We're going to see real institutional development, much more than what we've seen thus far, which has been pretty significant compared to what we were in the last cycle, and so really there's only more reasons to be bullish. I think that these people, these rich people could very easily actually believe in Bitcoin. They could very easily be investing in this stuff.
Narrative themselves.
Exactly. They have sponsors with different companies, and it would be bad for their business relationships.
Reputation to say something on public. Yeah, very true.
I think that's probably the most consistent approach that I think.
I can agree with that, because there's actually a clip of Mark Cuban telling people to put upwards of 5 to 10% into cryptocurrencies and Bitcoin
Mm-hmm.
before the big bull run, and now he's telling everybody not to do it at all. And so it's just like there's that switching up kind of thing where they switch up. You know, and maybe some of it's hidden agendas, maybe some of it's how they're viewed in the public, maybe some of it's business relations, maybe some of it's how much they've invested in certain companies. But then there's also the aspect of sometimes, even aside from that, the delusion that can be created too, because I know what happened to me in 2017, and I'm sure you know exactly that happened to you too. In 2017, we were extremely delusional about the market. We thought that we were going to have infinite money forever, always coming in at the same rate that we were getting it, and it was just going to continue to make us the richest people ever. And that kind of delusion, now that I've experienced it myself, and then had something other than what I expected happen, and had to go through all of the emotions of processing that and learning that, then I can identify that in other people too. And when you look at the stock market in the long term, the old financial system has been going up for so long, and I could see how people would be so integrated with this old beaten path that they're delusional. You know, they don't see the fact that this old path has trash on both sides of it, because they've just been so used to walking down the same road.
Exactly. I think that you brought up a really good point. I mean, one of the things that I constantly try and tell people in my analysis, all my subscribers, is I say that you don't want to be the person fighting the trend, and that kind of seems like what we're doing here. We're taking the stance of the opposing trend, and we're saying, you know, we're campaigning for this revolutionary technology to completely disrupt the current system and then just kind of do away with it, or it's either do away with it or they add to the current revolution, and that's kind of what we're expecting to see. And so oftentimes I tell people don't fight the trend, but with that being said, I foresee this trend ending very soon. I don't think that it can sustain itself like this. I always looked at the stock market and crypto markets and every market in general is just kind of like you took a garden hose. And if you took the hose and tipped it straight up in the air, you'd have a period where the water would rise out only to top out at a certain level. It couldn't maintain momentum. Exactly, and that's going to be the case with every market. Obviously, the stock market's been going straight up, and it has a massive water spout, much bigger than any other markets we've seen.
And it could keep going for a while.
100%.
Yeah, but we will be watching for the beginnings of a trend reversal, so that we're not necessarily fighting the trend, but we're aware that corrections happen, and once a correction starts, then we're on the right side of the trend.
It's just right now the current economic system is very sick. I think that we've basically put every band-aid that we possibly could on it to try and just keep it going. And I think that in 2017, in 2016, but 2017 mainly, it was 2015 and 2016 when I started educating myself on the financial system, centralized banking in that regard. 2016, you introduced me to Bitcoin. 2017 is when I fully dedicated to trading and investing in things. And, you know, that whole situation, it's really crazy just to like look back on that, because so much has changed in regards to what has happened in times past. But the current system, what I foresaw was that we were going to see some major events play out by the turn of 2020. By 2020, I expect that we'd see something happen, whether it was a collapse, whether it was a recession, something along those lines. And who knows, we might not get that collapse, and we might not see the recession quite yet. It could still be a couple years down the line. But I think that the current system itself is showing more signs of weakness than ever before. I think that, I mean, treasury bonds, they're starting to yield negative interest rates. You're starting to see this coronavirus starting to attack the markets. And even though the markets haven't dipped that much, and I don't really think it's that big of a problem, I do believe that we're starting to see a slower and a quicker and quicker decline of the current system. And it's just a matter of time before we do get that tipping point where it ushers in a new era of cryptocurrency, blockchain technology. And I think that, you know, this next bubble should see that actually take foot.
Yeah, no, 100% true. And the system itself is created to be replaced. It is, because whenever you base something on value, on value getting less every year, like inflation, it's created from the beginning to fail. And even if you weren't intending to create it to fail, it is created from the beginning to fail because of inflation. You cannot continually pull money out of thin air where value isn't being created. And what you said about band-aids on the economy, a lot of times we make these band-aids for the economy and we're like, okay, we're going to put a band-aid on, and we tell the public that we're about to put a band-aid on, and we don't even put a band-aid on the wound, and then it's infected.
Yeah.
And that's basically what happened with 2008 and credit default swaps and all of the whole housing market and that whole crash and everything. Is where, like, we told the public, oh, we're going to put a band-aid on this. Then none of the people that had an effect on everything that happened got any consequences. And then the changes were never even made, so that we basically have the same thing going on today.
Yeah.
And prices are just getting hyperinflated and everything.
We're starting to see the resurgence of subprime loans, which was what really caused that whole financial crisis.
Yep.
I mean, me and Dallin actually, back in start of 2018, we actually met with that Hispanic immigrant, and he was somebody that was directly affected from the financial collapse.
Lost his house.
Yeah, his issue and his
family.
mistake was that he took out a bunch of loans to get houses. He had a couple different cars, a couple houses, and then he was an immigrant. He wasn't even, I don't even think he had his green card. So somehow he ended up getting all these loans, gets all this money. The economy implodes, banks, go belly up, and then they have to bail out, and so they come looking for all that money. And now, basically, what ended up happening, they took all of his stuff back, and then they charged him 4 times the value of all of his assets. And so he's ruined for life. He came to us because he wanted us to help or give him a sponsorship for a court battle that they were actually a lawsuit against some of these banks. And it was a big lawsuit. It was a really big lawsuit. Probably won't win. I doubt that they'll ever win it.
Right.
But
maybe, hopefully.
I really hope. I really
blessings
hope.
go towards them.
Yeah, because it's terrible to hear how he was affected in that regard. Obviously, he was making dumb decisions. But what do you expect from somebody that doesn't understand the system or how it works? Which they were being lied to from the beginning.
Yeah, and they were told that they would be able to keep those loans at the interest rate. They were told that they could have it the way that it is, and then that agreement was changed upon them.
Yeah.
So yes, they made dumb decisions, but then they also got screwed over on top of that.
Much more of a screwing over than anything. It's just corruption.
Yeah, exactly. And just to see how that affected his family, wife and kids and everything like that. And who knows? I don't know. He might have got his green card. I don't know. That was speculation between me. But he did definitely was very, very shook up from the situation, and it negatively affected him and his family. So to be able to meet somebody in person that was affected by that really gives you perspective on everything. And he got into Bitcoin because of that, and it's just like we always say, from a mythological perspective, Bitcoin is the phoenix rising from the ashes of a broken, corrupt, burned down, and destroyed system.
Yep, quote that one.
And it's literally just the beginning. This is like, literally, if you're investing in Bitcoin right now, it's basically like if you got in on the S&P 500 in 1920 or whatever, like
way back when.
It's basically you're setting yourself up for long-term success, and because of that, I think that it's really, really important to remember that with public ledgers and with this revolution that we are creating, we need to continually push the movement of transparency and public ledgers, because it's the transparency that allows us to avoid these court cases and these manipulations and these scams. The transparency and the open and the public ledger is the solution.
Yes, for that. I agree. 100%. It's very important that we actually move towards this system, because obviously I think a major problem that we've had over the last 100 years is corruption. Powerful people making decisions for themselves that directly negatively impacts thousands, millions of people, and we're just starting to get a real technology that can kind of help with all of that. We can start to, create better trustless systems to where we don't even have to trust anybody. We know where our money's going. We know what purpose it serves. We know, what all of these companies are doing, because, it's programmed into the code. It's like what you just said, in code we trust. Your drawing that you drew. It's so important because we can't trust anybody. We really can't. I can't trust any human. We can't even trust our own politicians that run the country. And so how are we supposed to create systems that are going to work if the people that are creating the systems are just lying. It's
Yeah.
not going to. And so the fact that we do have blockchain, the fact that we do have cryptocurrency is kind of the spawn from that movement. It's really nice to see us actually taking these steps, and this next bubble is really going to be the one that sets us into that mainstream, to where I do believe we'll strongly get past a lot of these different issues that we have with corruption and just lying and greed in general.
Yeah, I agree. And it's programmable money. That's why it works. Because you can program the money to have the trust within the money rather than the people that are using the money that they're using.
Yep.
And so if you owe the banks $200,000 or something, let's say hypothetically, if it's on a blockchain, if it's on a smart contract that you owe the banks that much, the interest rate is locked into that contract, the amount that you owe is locked into that contract, and saved in code in a public ledger that's immutable, so it can't be changed, so the bank can't come around and be like, oh, actually, here's your interest rate now, and you owe us $400,000 instead of $2. And by the way, sorry for being so stupid because you wanted to get a house for your family.
Yeah.
And that right there is like, that gives you perspective of like the application of programmable money versus this money that we just hand to each other, or that we take out of each other's banks, or that the government comes and seizes from people. And it's just, we need to be able to immutably make contracts, and even more so than contracts, immutably say whose property is whose property, so that people can't take and steal and become overly greedy because of the opportunity to be.
Right.
You know?
It's just decentralize the entire world, really. It's only going to bring a more positive light of day for everybody that's involved, I believe. I think that it's going to really transform the way that we view value, the way that we view modern technology, really everything in society today. I mean, right now I feel like we're kind of at this point where we're moving towards this digital age, and we have been for quite some time, the last 20 years at least. And we're still kind of at this point where we have current systems that are really struggling to sustain the current economy. We have this new technology, but it's still really underground. It's still very underdeveloped. I mean, looking at Ethereum and Bitcoin, relatively in comparison with Ethereum, what it's trying to accomplish, Ethereum is just too slow to scale, and that's what we're seeing. We start to see ETH 2.0. Yeah, but that's what ETH 2.0 theory is supposed to solve. And so I think that we're really at this big point right now, specifically in history, where we have the current system, we're kind of in a mix between the digital age and then the old system, and over this next 10-year period, I think that that's when we're going to see the major leap into just technology just taking over in general. We're going to see, I would assume that we see a pretty significant drop-off in jobs due to automation. And with that being said, there will be a new batch of jobs created in that place, artificial intelligence. So many different things are just coming to this economy, and it's hard to foresee what it could potentially bring right now because we are at the infancy of this stage, but I think that it's really going to blow people's minds exactly what changes will take place, 5 to 10 years from now with these new implementations that are going to be had in the new society.
I agree. AI, blockchain, and then you've got like stuff like VR, which is really cool. There's lots of really, really cool stuff coming out, and the old system, the old way of doing things is going to die out because the new is here. And so the replacement is here, and it's just super exciting, man. I mean, I heard a statistic about AI, that AI will take away, I think it was 1.6 million jobs. You guys correct me if I'm wrong, you can Google this, look it up or whatever. I will too right now to double check. But AI is supposed to create double the amount of jobs that it's going to remove.
Right.
So what it's actually doing is it's not making it so there's less work and less jobs. Everybody's so fearful of automation and AI and all of these things. It's making it so that you're not doing tedious work.
Yeah.
So that you're not the factory worker. You're not doing tedious work that affects you as a human being. It actually takes those jobs, makes less of the crappy ones and more of the good ones that are purposeful and meaningful. And I think that's what's going to happen with pretty much all of these technologies that are coming out. And that is what we can expect to happen, is that, yes, average people are going to think that it's going to remove jobs. And yes, it will remove certain people's jobs, but that same person could also go to find a better, newer opportunity somewhere else because of the
I
technology.
agree. I mean, really, a big fear right now is that automation is gonna take out jobs, and it definitely will to some degree. But you're talking about people that are sitting there taking your food orders from McDonald's or something.
Yeah.
People that do I mean, it's hard work, don't get me wrong. People that work fast food, I feel for them. That's a pain in the ass job. It really does suck to do something like that. Tedious work. It's hot, long hours, and it's just not something you want to do ever.
Why would you want to wish that upon your worst enemy?
Exactly. But at the end of the day, it's not a desired skill set. You're not doing anything really beneficial. You're just selling food.
Yeah, there's probably not going to be a whole lot of purpose.
Exactly.
You know,
And
you're
so-
not going to find cure your depression with all this new meaning because you got a job at McDonald's.
Yeah.
Probably not.
I mean, I look at it as a better thing. I mean, the people that are making the argument against AI and automation are the people that are afraid of their jobs getting taken away because those people refuse to go learn a valuable skill that actually provides value, and that's the issue that we're starting to see here. But I think that with AI taking over, and with, you know, in a good way, not taking over the world, but I think with AI starting to make its resurgence, all these new jobs starting to come up, it's just going to create a much bigger market for these people that would normally go get these lower end jobs for another opportunity somewhere else. And I mean, the low end of the spectrum, the people that are going to be poor, they're going to stay poor. That's just the way it kind of works. It's really hard for people to get out of their old belief systems to, you know, transition into this new way of wealth. And so those people are going to stay poor. They're born into the families, they get taught these terrible belief systems, and it just kind of self-perpetuates into the bloodline or whatever. But I think that, like you said, I mean, the big fear is that automation is going to take away, but really I see more potential of it just adding new factory workers, producing artificial intelligence, and not even factory workers, but people that are actually creating and using artificial intelligence to create new algorithms, to create better ways for just functioning in society. We could have new drones that are just dropping packages off. I think that Amazon's been working on that for a while now. And so this new age is actually going to be really, really cool.
Yeah.
It will be a lot easier to get things. I think that resources itself will drop in value significantly.
Yeah.
And that's probably the most important part of artificial intelligence and automation. It's not the fact that it's going to be taking away jobs, it's the fact that actually it's going to be providing a lot more value in the way that our current system and the way the economics are, like how we value things. I think that prices are going to decrease substantially because it'll be
the
easier.
cost of production, the cost of getting it to your house, the
Right.
cost of all of these things will go down because we'll figure out better and smarter ways to do it, which we couldn't think of before because we're not
Right.
artificial intelligence, which is a million times smarter than us.
Yeah.
So this right here, I just want to clarify on the statistic. It's not double, but AI will remove 1.8 million jobs and create 2.3 million. So, you know, a little less than double.
It's a gain though.
But it's a gain in overall jobs. And so that's a good argument for people that are worried about automation taking jobs is there's actually a lot of more value that's going to be created.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's the important thing to remember. And what you said about kind of being poor is usually mindset, pretty much purely mindset and psychology and belief systems, like you said. But what's actually interesting is sometimes people hear, oh, well, all this new money coming in, well, the rich are just going to get richer. Yes, the rich are going to get richer, but guess what happens to the poor? As the rich get richer, the amount of people that get fed on the planet goes up directly with the amount of billionaires and wealthy people that are in the world. So although, yes, the gap between the rich and the poor has gotten quite big, especially in recent years and times, industrial revolution stuff, I think Bitcoin blockchain will help with that gap, and also all the new wealth being created will not only help with the wealth gap, but also will even feed more people.
Yeah.
And allow for the poor to change their mindset and change their lives,
Right.
and actually add more value for everybody.
Right. And I mean, at the end of the day, you're going to get on YouTube and you'll hear all these conspiracies about how evil these billionaires are. And yes, I'm sure that there are some greedy people out there that could inherently be a little bit evil. But I would say that the majority of millionaires, billionaires, if there's a trillionaire out there, I would say that the majority of those people have it in their best interest to help everybody else in humanity. I mean, we're seeing that with Elon Musk, giving away his patents, making them free so the public can use his ideas so that they can better the world in general.
Yeah.
And not only that, but I mean, Akon, he's launching his own city that runs strictly off of his Akon cryptocurrency. Seeing this type of stuff, that man alone provided electricity to 400 million Africans in Africa.
Wow.
What has a government ever done? It's
Yeah.
not a government that's ever going to help you. It's the billionaires, and that's why I'm so strong and a believer in capitalism, is because it's never the politicians that are helping you. It's the billionaires that are creating jobs, that are going out there creating solutions to real-world problems,
Yeah.
and that's what people are just so confused. It never makes sense to me, because I always have been a believer that, you know, you see that guy making all that money. Yeah, he's got people making, you know, $10 an hour under him. But at the end of the day, this guy's creating so many jobs. He's creating an infrastructure that feeds people,
Yeah.
or, you know, provides real world value that helps so many people's lives. And if that was gone, who knows how that could negatively impact you? And we just have this short-term span where, well, that guy's making billions of dollars and I'm broke. Why this is his fault? And it's like, no, it's your fault because you're broke and you don't have the mindset required to actually go out and create value. And that's really the difference here.
Facts. And for all the boomers that are watching our channel, yes, we are younger, and we are capitalists. We're not part of the millions of young people in college that are socialists.
Even though I wear colorful clothes and crystals, it doesn't mean I'm an idiot.
Tie-dye and a captain hat sometimes, right?
We're just woke.
So, definitely, I think that I've always been open-minded. I mean, one of my best friends is basically a communist, you know, just from an ideological perspective, and the way that he views the world is he really believes that communism is the way to go, you know, and sometimes people are just full-blown socialists. So I'm very open-minded to having discussions with
Right.
people, alternative. I'm not going to jump in and cut them off in halfway through their sentence like a Democratic or Republican debate. I'm
Yeah.
gonna let people talk. I'm gonna hear what they have to say. But fundamentally, I do think that capitalism offers, from my perspective, the best value creation for the most amount of people in the world. And it's capitalism, I think, that will help clean our oceans, help with our planet, and all the things that socialists and socialism wants to have happen. It's actually capitalism that's going
Right.
to spawn those solutions.
Socialism's
to
just
those.
built on false promises. They say that they're going to do something, and never happens because you're trying to give all of the money to a
Some
fine majority.
socialism, some aspects of socialism.
I agree, because I do believe that there are key aspects to every different ideological belief system that we can take from and that we can use. And that's why, I mean, yeah, capitalism works, but I also think that there's parts of capitalism that could be changed, and we could take parts of socialism, communism, and these systems to create one cohesive, you know, form of governance. And I think
Right.
that that's what we will move into. I really hope that we don't move towards the
Pure
same cycle.
communism or pure
Yeah,
anything.
because it really does seem like we're getting to that point. I mean, we're starting to see changes in speech. That was one thing, kind of getting off topic, but Jordan Peterson moved to, if you guys that don't know who Jordan Peterson is, he's just a psychologist.
Dr. Jordan B. Peterson.
Really, really intelligent person. Love watching him and watching his videos and books and whatnot. But he moved from Canada to America because they were getting to the point where they were changing the pronouns for transgender people by naming them Zer or something weird like that.
And
with a
he
Z.
wanted freedom of speech. Right?
Yes, because it wasn't necessarily that he cared that they were transgender.
He didn't actually.
Exactly.
At all.
He
claimed specifically that he doesn't care.
Exactly, but it was the fact that the government is now changing the way that we communicate back and forth, and it's those little things that take us back to Nazi Germany, that take us back to all of these communist dictators that start to take over. It's just little by little right, and
Yeah.
then pretty soon, you know, we no longer have the freedom of
First
speech.
we get searched at all our airports, then we get searched in all our cars, then we get searched. Basically, all of our privacies are gone. Everything gets taken away one piece at a time until 20 or 30 years are down the road, and you don't have any rights, and the government controls what your kids are taught, and the government controls where your kids are at, the government controls what food you eat, and the government controls freaking everything. And in the Communist Manifesto, the person that literally wrote up the ideas of communism said specifically that capitalism leads to socialism and socialism leads to communism, and that is the cycle of almost every single political system in history to a degree. And so when you think about what we're headed towards, and you start to see us headed towards socialism now, it is more time than ever to put the brakes on that, teach people other things, and give at least perspective on why capitalism is so good, so that they can think about these ideas. And what happens a lot of times is, you move to a different city, or you go to college or something, and you're around all these new influences, and really you're just picking up on their vocabulary, and next thing you know, you're saying all of these things that are like socialistic ideas, and you don't even know why you're saying them, or fundamentally what makes you believe them. You just know that people around you believe the same thing and have a great deal of emotion attached to what they believe.
Right.
And so you pick up on that emotion and that vocabulary and these things, start repeating them, and then you think that you believe them too.
Right.
And that's just, I beg you guys, or at least ask you guys, to consider looking at yourself, analyzing yourself, and asking yourself, am I getting these ideas because I've had an insight or something that I've seen in my life, or something that gives me evidence to support this idea, or am I getting these ideas because it's acceptable socially for me to get that idea?
Right, and that's a big thing. I mean, even with my own family, I saw that. When my sister left to go to college, I saw her belief system just completely 180, and it was because she associated with different sort of people. And it just shows that the people you associate with, you are going to become.
Yeah.
And that's why, for me personally, and I know it's the same for you, I have a harder time making close friends because we value conversation like this, where I can talk about blockchain technology, I can talk about capitalism. You can't talk like this to most people because they don't understand any of what we're talking about. They just listen to what the crowd or what the news says. And that's such a big issue in today, with my generation specifically, is the fact that we're just blind to, thinking outside the box, having your own thought process, being your own person. Everybody just wants to follow the herd, be with the pack, and I've never been that type of person. That's why it was always hard for me to personally fit in with everybody else's, because I knew I was different. I knew that there was something about it, and the older I get, the more that I realize, I'm here for a purpose. I'm here to help educate and help inspire people towards this. I'm not ever going to be able to, trying to preach to the herds like talking to a brick wall. They're only going to listen to what they want. And so for me, that's why we have this YouTube channel, nonetheless, both of our channels, and this podcast specifically is a way for us to just help, spread light on these sort of things that don't get talked about, because today's podcast actually talked in a lot of different things that, aside from cryptocurrency, that we actually haven't gotten into. And that's really the point of this podcast, was to do those sort of things, because we have great perspective on these sort of events, the economy, politics and things like that. We just don't talk about it when we're doing technical analysis, and so
because we just want to show prices and what we expect in prices. Yeah, and I think that one thing I would like to add on top of that is that these conversations are going to expand the conversation for everybody. If you guys have opposing ideas, beliefs, anything that you want to drop in the comment section below and give us your perspective or ideas or thoughts on the matter, like, we're willing to have open conversations or accept other people's ideas. And the real thing here is that we want to have real constructive conversations about what's going to help the entire planet, what's going to help us, and what's going to help the entire planet. And I think that's really what's important, is to sit down and figure out what's going to help you, first of all, then what's going to help your family, second of all, and what's going to help your friends, and then what's going to help the world. So you start with making sure you're healed first, and then your family, your friends, and then the world. And I think that is what's so beautiful about these conversations, is we get to kind of talk about things we've been thinking about with ourselves. We talk about things that may help our family. We talk about things that helps our friends, and we also talk about things that is going to help the world. And what I have noticed is that a lot of the people that follow us, most all of you guys, are intellectual, good at conversation, deep thinkers like we are, and that's so beautiful to be able to connect with you guys, because very few of you are kind of that crowd mentality. And that's amazing to be able to have you guys as our subscribers and our viewers, to have such an intelligent community behind us.
For sure. We definitely jumped in the greatest niche you ever possibly could. There's very little competition, there's a lot of profit potential, and there's just amazing people in general. I mean, the cryptocurrency community has really changed my life, and more so over just like the last few months. I've just seen the recent rise in my subscribers. My Twitter's been doing good, the Discord's been really doing well as well, and so having all of this happen over the last few months has been really exciting to just experience that. I mean, we're still at the very early stages of this bull market. We have so much profit potential that's still going to come. So many new exciting things and innovations are going to be had over this next cycle, and it's just exciting to have other intellectual people, other people that see the opportunity out there, other people that might be viewed as more of an outcast towards common society, because this is really the community where we get behind, and then it slowly is just a snowball effect, and it's just going to grow and grow and grow until finally everybody that once called you guys an idiot for buying Bitcoin is now buying your bags and what you're selling on top. And so just consider this a great opportunity, because we're early. Even if people are calling you stupid now, we've been called stupid, we've been,
called crazy.
Yeah, we've heard it all.
Everything.
And, at the end of the day,
and
we're doing very well.
You know what? And I am kind of crazy, like a little bit. Like, I'll be honest with you, I'm kind of crazy sometimes.
Yeah, he's nuts.
And that is part of why I think this space fits me so well, and why I love the people here. Is because it's that crazy misfit, like wild west. We're just gonna change the world because we believe in it, and we're gonna bet our entire life super young, and we're gonna do everything we can to just fully integrate and create this blockchain technology and share the benefits with the world. And if you think about that, I can imagine that same energy in the early computer days.
Oh, for sure.
The Bill Gates, Steve Jobs, the early computer days, the early internet days, and the Amazons, the eBays, the Facebooks, the MySpaces, like what we're going through right now with like Bitcoin and all of that stuff, the energy behind it is the same thing, if not even bigger and better, because it has to do with resources, which is the most fundamental aspect of human psychology, period.
Yeah, I mean, what the internet did with information, we're seeing a transition of something that, I mean, we think that we have a good idea of what's coming, but at the end of the day, we have no idea. And to say that we did, we'd be lying. I think that it's going to completely blow away any expectations that we ever foresaw. Anybody, even with some maybe the highest outlooks, I think that it could just outperform even those. And so we really have no idea what's going to happen. It's all speculation at the end of the day. But what I can say is that the way that the internet changed the world, I think blockchain technology and cryptocurrencies will, 10x from that. And, the next evolution or revolution in technology will 100x from that. And then it'll 1000x from that. And it's just going to keep growing at crazier rate. So
and then
it's exciting.
Hopefully humanity makes it to the stars, hopefully we can expand this family into this
Less
cosmos.
people working as a cashier and more people working on science and technology.
Yeah, more people hanging out on Mars with a smoothie.
Yeah.
Like, I want to have a smoothie on Mars.
Elon Musk.
Yeah, that'd be sick. Experimenting with new little remote controls that you're going around on the surface with to look at the different dirt and chemical compositions of planets and stuff. Like, that stuff is going to be cool. Or designing the robots that land on asteroids and mine gold for the future computing systems of the future, and all of that type of stuff. That's the type of stuff that whenever I'm if I'm feeling down, or if I'm feeling what is life about, or I'm having existential questions or anything like that, I just remember that I could build a robot that goes to another freaking planet and analyzes the dirt on it, and I'm my life is better again. Everything makes sense. And I think that is what's beautiful. So I really think that blockchain cryptocurrency will help heal our planet, help give us the infrastructure, the technology, the ideas, the ideologies that will actually, first we can heal our home, just like I was saying, we heal ourselves first, then our family, friends, and world. Now I think that we can heal ourselves as a world, and then we can expand to the cosmos after that, It probably might not be the best thing to just have humanity go all over space until we figure out stuff here a little bit first.
Right.
But I think that this may be the spark and the snowball effect, the domino effect that takes us to figuring out stuff here first, so that we don't spread a virus of corruption across the cosmos. We spread a virus of peace and unity and harmony.
Yeah, I agree.
And that's the vision that I'm so passionate about, that I don't care if people call me crazy. I don't care if I work on it all day, every day. I don't care if I'm looking at charts. I don't care if I'm researching things. I don't care what people think, because I know for myself that my why is so important that all those things are meaningless.
Humanity is really good at kicking the rock down the road until the very last second they fall off a cliff, and then they somehow turn it around in reverse. And so, we're seeing a lot of problems with corruption. We're seeing problems with polluting the environment and destroying ecosystems of animals, plants, all those types of things.
Yeah.
Polluting, it's a lot of things that we can fix. I think we should fix those things before we try and go to Mars. But we have enough technology, we have enough resources that we could do both simultaneously. It's just the fact that we don't have the systems in place to actually make it happen. And I think that that's the biggest misunderstanding. People think the world is going to end. It's not going to end, I don't think. I think that realistically we've hit a point where we're getting the technology needed. The Industrial Revolution, it was so great for the advancement to get us to where we're at in a technological perspective. But in the wake of that, we caused a lot of harm through greed, through pollution of our own environment. And I think that, we now have the technology that we can move to safer, better alternatives for everybody, as well as the planet. And so I think that this next, our generation, our kids' generation, we're going to really start to see a big movement towards that. Because I know for my personal generation, kids my age, they're very aware of some of the things that are going on as far as the planet, with like polluting, just trash getting thrown everywhere, dumped in the oceans and things. And I do believe that kids our generation, and it's only going to continue to grow from here, they're going to be more adamant about recycling. They're going to be more adamant about creating different
sustainable, reusable.
Exactly. And
long term, we got to think long term, just like what we talk about in crypto investing. Stop with all this short term kind of stuff. Let's think long term with our planet too.
Exactly.
And that's coming from two capitalists. Like, you don't have to be a capitalist and then want the world to crash and burn in flames and trash and pollution. Like, you can realize that there's balance in all things.
So.
And that's kind of the beautiful thing about this life, is that we do get a chance to make things right, and even if everything does go to shit, even if the world ends, even if everything does go the opposite direction in which we desire, if you don't fight, then your life was pointless anyways. You just contributed to whatever was going to happen. So at least try to help well you can, so.
I agree.
Well, that's a lot of amazing stuff that we went over in today's podcast. We've gone a little bit over, or I think we're about exactly as long as we normally go. So I think that we will call it a podcast for the day, but these are all really exciting things. Love to hear you guys' perspectives, comments, discussions around these ideas.
Yeah, for sure. If you guys have anything you want to add, something we might have said, feel free to drop a comment below. You guys can join either or of our Discord servers. You can message us on there. You can email us. We have a number of different ways to reach us. So if you guys ever feel like you want to ask us something, you ever have some information or insight you wanted to share, maybe a topic that we could cover at a later date, feel free to drop those in the comments. You guys can get a hold of us on all fronts. At the end of the day, we just want to help spread awareness, and so we really appreciate every single one of you guys. All of the likes, all of the comments, support, kind words of encouragement. It means everything, and it just gives us more motivation to continue to make out these podcast videos for you guys. So thank you guys so much for that.
Thank you guys a lot for all of the support, and make sure that you guys share this video and smash up that like button one more time so that we can try to get 500 likes on this video. We really appreciate every single one of you guys and love having you tune into our podcast. This is going to be on iTunes soon. We're just figuring out all the details of getting audio put on iTunes for the podcast download. So watch for that in the future, and we will see you guys next week for the podcast. As always, stay profitable out there.